Okay, good evening, everybody. It's nice to see everybody. Some of you I see all the time. Some of you it's very exciting to see. I mean, it's exciting to see the people I see all the time too. Just to just be clear. But I hope everyone is doing well. It's a little bit of a stressful time as is, and the fact that Erev Pesach is Shabbos makes it a little more complicated. So hopefully we'll just muddle through this together, and hopefully we'll make a little more sense of it. As always, first of all, I want to thank Miriam Friedman for initiating this Shir series and keeping it running and moving and keeping me focused, which seems to be a part-time job in its own right to get me on track. So thank you very much to Miriam. And a big, big thank you to all the people who sent in questions. So for those not familiar with the format, I'm really going to go through the questions that people sent in first. My guess is we should probably be able to get through that in about 45 minutes. That's my guess. And then at that point, once we've gone through the list of questions, we'll open it up for further questions. God willing, we have a lot of time allotted for tonight. So please don't be nervous if you know, maybe your question won't be asked. God willing, we'll get to your question. I'll also mention for those people who are more veterans and confident and maybe just unsure about the differences this year because of Shabbos being Erev Pesach, we're going to address those questions first. So, and I'll even make clear when we're kind of moving on to regular Pesach questions. But just know, I'm going to watch who drops out at that point. And if you have any shilas about Pesach, I'm going to say it's usser if you dropped out early. No, that was just a joke. Okay, so let's just, and heaven help the people who aren't on. We'll just, you know, but let's just start. Let's get right to it. What's a person supposed to do with Shabbos meals, the Shabbos of Erev Pesach? So let's go through the issues. So to remind everyone, the Seder is going to be on Saturday night this year. Now, the way it works on a normal Erev Pesach is I'm allowed to eat chametz until around mid-morning on Erev Pesach, okay? I sent out a sheet of times and the like. I think the time is something like 10:42, something like that, but double check me, please. But I'm allowed to eat chametz until around mid-morning on Erev Pesach. Most of us don't eat chametz Erev Pesach morning. Most of us don't want to see chametz Erev Pesach morning. But this year it's Shabbos, and we need to make hamotzi, and we need to do lechem mishnah. So how is one to do that? What are one's options? So theoretically speaking, when you're talking about hamotzi, there are three options. Let's go through them one by one. Okay, one option for hamotzi over Shabbos is what we do every week. Take out challah and make hamotzi on it, right? Take two rolls and make hamotzi. Now, what's the issue? The issue is twofold. For some of us, it's going to be a little bit stressful because presumably we're going to be ready for Pesach, and then what we'll do is we'll make hamotzi, and it'll just be a little bit nerve-wracking. What's going to be with that chametz? If a person feels that they can have, you know, that they'll sit on some little table. By the way, you could make hamotzi at some little corner table with a nice little plastic tablecloth and wrap it up at the end, and you could eat the rest of the meal in the dining room. Just to keep in mind, you know, for people's nerves. The only technical point I'll make is if the only hamotzi that you eat is at that little table, when it's time to bench at the end of the meal, you should go back to the little table. If you want to make hamotzi out on the porch Friday night, you could do that. That's fine. And then you could, you know, wash your mouth out, whatever, and then proceed to eat a Pesach meal the rest of the meal in your dining room. But when you bench, you'll have to go back to the porch to bench. That would be one theoretical option. That would be an option for Friday night. It would be an option for Shabbos morning, but there's an added caveat because I can't eat chametz past whatever the time is. I think it's 10:42. I can't eat chametz past 10:42 Shabbos morning, which is not the end of the world. It just means I have to make my hamotzi and be finished with my chametz before 10:42. I want to be very clear. Come 10:42, I cannot be eating chametz anymore. It doesn't matter that I made hamotzi ahead of time. Come 10:42, I can't be eating chametz anymore. It's okay for me to continue eating a Pesach meal. It's okay for me to bench after 10:42, but I can't be eating chametz anymore in any way, shape, or form, even crumbs. Okay, so that would be the bread option. What about matzah? Could I eat matzah for lechem mishnah on Shabbos of Erev Pesach? So that's a problem And the reason why it's a problem, a lot of us have minhagim about not eating matzah a certain amount of time before Pesach. It's a very popular minhag, but that's not what I'm talking about. There's a halacha, I'm not allowed to eat matzah the day of the Seder. So I'm prohibited from making hamotzi on matzah Shabbos morning, okay? And according to most opinions, that's true for Friday night as well, that I may not make hamotzi because it's the same halachic day, that I may not make hamotzi on matzah Friday night either. So matzah's really out. Okay, so right now the only thing on the board so far is chametz, but that's I think stressful for some of us. So are there any other options? So there's one more option. That option is egg matzah. Okay, now why would egg matzah be different? So the reason why egg matzah would be different is because egg matzah, I can't be yotzei with egg matzah at the Seder. The whole idea of not eating matzah the day of the Seder is when I eat the matzah at the Seder, it should be new and special. So egg matzah's different enough than regular matzah that I'm allowed to eat egg matzah the day of the Seder, and the matzah at the Seder will still be considered special. Okay, what's the practical difference between egg matzah and chametz? So Ashkenazim that are healthy and well are not allowed to eat egg matzah on Pesach. If a person is not well, you can ask your local rabbi, but without your 70 favorite Zoom friends present. But if a person is well, if an Ashkenazi is well, we may not eat egg matzah on Pesach. So what's the difference between egg matzah and challah? Well, the difference is as follows. I can have a box of egg matzah around my house on Pesach. I'm just not supposed to eat it. So if a person is stressed out, oy vey, what's going to be? There's crumbs of chametz floating around the house. I can't handle that. So then they could really make hamotzi on egg matzah, both Friday night and Shabbos morning, and it's much less stress. I want to be clear, for an Ashkenazi, the same deadline for not eating chametz past a certain time on Shabbos, 10:42, is the same deadline for not eating egg matzah past 10:42 on Shabbos. But it is less stressful. Now, I should mention one more thing. If you're eating egg matzah, you shouldn't have egg matzah, let's say, you shouldn't be eating leftover crumbs of egg matzah at 11 o'clock in the morning. If you make hamotzi on egg matzah, you should just, clean off the area, but it's much less stressful. If it's no big deal to a person one way or the other, it is better to have good old challah. No, it's because there's no question about making hamotzi on it and the like. But if a person is stressed out about having chametz around the house, egg matzah is definitely an acceptable option. So I just want to repeat this because I know this is confusing. Matzah is out for Friday night and Shabbos lunch. Matzah is out for Friday night and Shabbos lunch. Whatever you do, you must be done with chametz or egg matzah by whatever the time is, 10:42 in the morning, with one exception. If you're Sephardi, a Sephardi is not allowed to eat chametz after 10:42 either, but a Sephardi is allowed to eat egg matzah after 10:42. So, and I see Sammy Franco here. He gave me wonderful Sephardi tutorial for the Purim spiel. If anybody, whatever, you can talk to him. Maybe Abinu Sheba Shemai. But the bottom line is that if you're Ashkenazi, you can't eat egg matzah past 10:42. If you're Sephardi, you can. Now, what about Shal Shudas? How does Shal Shudas work? So it should be obvious by this point that if you're an Ashkenazi, hamotzi is out for Shal Shudas. It's nothing. Chametz you can't have in the afternoon. Egg matzah you can't have in the afternoon. Matzah you can't have all day. You're done. So there's basically two options if you're an Ashkenazi. One option is to have two washings and benchings in a brief period of time in the morning. In other words, let's say a person davens nice and early Shabbos morning. They come home, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. They wash, they make hamotzi on challah, they bench, they take a walk around the block, and then they come and they wash again, something like that. It's one option. Some people do that. What most people do is they have Shalosh Shudas, Shabbos afternoon, and they just don't have hamotzi. Normally we try to have hamotzi for Shabbos Shudas, but there are opinions that you don't have to have hamotzi. So you could have a piece of gefilte fish, you could have a piece of chicken, you could even have fruit if you wanted to. There's an interesting issue that comes up. You can have, Mishnah Berurah says that you could have kinei dalach. You're not allowed to have matzah, but you can have something from matzah meal if it's cooked, not baked. You couldn't have matzah meal cake Erev Pesach, but you could have like kinei dalach, and you could have that even in the afternoon, Erev Pesach. Whatever you do for Shalos Shudas, it's supposed to be that you'll have an appetite for the Seder later on, but I think most of us, that's not a problem. Now, Sfardim, back to Sfardim could have Sudash Lishit on Ev Matzah. But especially if you're washing, you can't have it. I put the time in the sheet that I sent out. You can't have it past something like 4 o'clock. It's something like that. You have to be diligent about that. Okay. So that's the basic story in terms of Shabbos bills. And again, I'll be happy to take as many questions as you like once we're done with the presentation, God willing. Okay. Now, another question is as follows. This is an excellent question. Just imagine the following situation. A person decides to make hamotzi on challah for Shabbos. And it's one person. So what do they have? They have a roll. That's all they need for Shabbos lunch. They have 2 rolls. They have they'll make lechem mishnah Friday night, right, and delete one of the rolls. And then Shabbos morning they just want to eat the other roll. But we know you're supposed to have lechem mishnah. So the question is, what are they supposed to do? Because basically you're supposed to eat all the chametz you leave over. Let me backtrack for 1 second. On Friday, and this is all laid out in the document I sent out, there was a cyber brief that with the packet. On Friday, we're supposed to make an assessment of what the story is with our chametz. Okay, we can basically do 3 things with our chametz come Friday. Obviously, God willing, there'll be a communal dumpster this year. Chametz we can still bring to the communal dumpster at the shul. Certainly by Friday, Thursday night, whatever it is. When I burn the chametz this year, I'm going to burn it on Friday midday, like by something like 11:45, something like that. The time is in there, is in the sheet, so I can either burn chametz, the chametz from my Medica that I did Thursday night, I burn Friday morning. I can set aside chametz to eat on Shabbos, and I can set aside chametz for the sale of chametz. We don't sell the chametz on Shabbos. We don't do transactions on Shabbos. So the chametz gets sold on Friday. Okay, the chametz gets sold on Friday. So that means that whatever chametz I'm selling, I should be putting aside in the area that I normally put my chametz for sale by about 11:45 on Friday. So some chametz I'll burn on Friday or flush down the toilet. Some chametz I'll put aside in the cabinet and sell on Friday. And some chametz I'll eat over Shabbos. But truth be told, the goal is that when it comes 10:42 Shabbos morning, I don't have chametz lying around. The goal would be that whatever chametz I would have would be small crumbs from the leftovers of my hamotzi on Shabbos, if I made hamotzi on chametz on Shabbos, and I'll just flush them down the toilet Shabbos morning. So the question that's asked is if you have one person sitting there and they want to have lechem mishnah, so they have 1 roll of bread, but they don't want to have a second roll of bread if they're not going to eat it. So what are they supposed to do for lechem mishnah? I hope you could just quick nod or shake it. Did that question make sense? Are people with me on the question? Okay. So what are they supposed to do for lechem mishnah? So I'll give you 2 solutions. One solution, you're going to vote me down as rabbi when I tell you the solution, but I'm telling you it will be okay. One solution is take an actual matzah, put it in a bag, don't even expose it directly, and just make damotzi. You have your roll, and you'll hold it against your matzah in a bag. I'm telling you, I know 25% of the people on Zoom will never ask me a shayla again. They'll never eat in my house. I know. That's one theoretical option. The other option if a person wanted, maybe they could, if you had like an egg matzah around or something, maybe take an egg matzah as the second, make on that. That might be a solution. But the question is better than the answer. But that would be, if a person's stressed out about what to do, that might be a good reason to just do egg matzah for Shabbos. And then you wouldn't. There's nothing. You have no problem with leftover egg matzah. You can have matzah around the house on Shabbos. It's not on Pesach. It's egg matzah. It's not a problem. Okay. But what is not a good solution? It's not a good solution to on Shabbos put your extra chametz aside to sell to the non-Jew. That's not advisable. That's what I would say, at least. Okay. Okay, if a person has challah on Friday night and Shabbos morning, can they use the same tablecloth as long as their plastic is over? But the place with the basic question is a person wants to set up for Shabbos. I personally, I have no idea why I'm saying this, because I really should ask my wife before saying this, but my guess is that if we make hamotzi on challah, we're not doing it in the dining room. My guess is we're not making hamotzi on challah, but but we'll see. But if a person really was going to be very, very, very careful, they could make hamotzi and challah in the dining room and just make sure to eat it over the plastic tablecloth cover, and then wrap up the plastic tablecloth cover when you're done. When you're done Shabbos lunch, and shake the pieces into the toilet. You could shake it outside also if you wanted. But if there's some candlesticks on the other end of the table and the chametz didn't get anywhere near them, the chametz didn't get anywhere near them. In other words, if you know that the issue is where's the chametz? Wherever the chametz is, you have to eliminate the chametz before around 11 o'clock on Shabbos morning. As long as you've eliminated the chametz, you're fine. Okay, the question, what besides the matzah is not permitted to eat on Shabbos before the Leil Seder? So again, we discussed that. Just to review, you may not eat matzah on the Shabbos before the Seder. You may not eat baked matzah meal items, but you may eat cooked matzah meal items such as kinei galach. Okay, great question. An Ashkenazi wants to know if they're allowed to make kitnios in Pesach utensils to be eaten on Shabbos of Erev Pesach. So there's a person who doesn't eat kitnios on Pesach. May they make kitnios in Pesach utensils to eat on Shabbos before Pesach? By the way, the time to stop eating kitnios would be the same as the time to stop eating chametz. But if they want to, I would say it's okay, but they should make sure that the vessels in which they make the kitnios are not used for 24 hours before they make Pesach things in it. So it's a little complicated. I'm not sure it's worth the trouble, unless you're in it for the long haul if you're Sephardi. But okay, I hope I answered that question. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what happens before Shabbos. Okay, the fast for the firstborn males, it's very interesting. The fast for the firstborn males this year is Thursday. The reason why it's Thursday is because Erev Pesach is Shabbos, but you're not going to have the fast day on Shabbos. And then we're really not so excited about having the fast day on Friday. So once we're pushing it back anyway, we don't push it back to Friday, we push it back to Thursday. So the day for the siyums and things, that's going to be Thursday before Pesach. Okay. The Bedikas Chametz is done Thursday night. The Bedikas Chametz is done Thursday night because we're not going to do the Chametz Friday night. We'll do the Bedikas Chametz Thursday night. Now, I'm supposed to burn the Chametz Friday morning. I burn it Friday morning. The practice is to burn the Chametz by the same time that we normally would burn chametz in a normal year. So I think the time is something like 11:58. Again, I have it in the sheet that I sent out. So even though I'm allowed to eat chametz Friday afternoon, I'm allowed to eat chametz Friday night, I'm allowed to eat chametz first thing Shabbos morning, when I dispose of the chametz on Friday, it's supposed to be that I do it by 11:58 on Friday. Now, I just want to clarify one thing. The Medica that I do Thursday night, I make a bracha on the Medica like I normally do. I say the bittul. The bittul is the language of nullification. I say the bittul after the Medica on Thursday night like I normally do. I do not say the bittul when I burn the chametz on Friday. I repeat, I do not say the bittul when I burn the chametz on Friday. I say the bittul after the Medica Thursday night. I don't say the bittul when I burn the chametz on Friday. And I say the bittul that I normally say when I burn the chametz, I say it Shabbos morning, once I'm done with the chametz. The reason for that is the bittul that I say when I burn the chametz, I say, Gosh Hashem, whatever chametz I've got, that I saw, that I didn't see, that I know about, that I don't know about, it's all nothing in my mind. I can't say that on Friday. I'm about to come home and eat challah Friday night. That doesn't make any sense. So Thursday night, the bittul that I say is, Hashem, if I missed any chametz in my check, I render it null and void. I can say that. But the second bittul that I say is, whatever chametz I have, I did miss it, I didn't miss it, it's all nothing to me. I can't say that Friday morning. It doesn't make any sense. So I just burn the chametz on Friday, and the bittul I say Shabbos before the time that the chametz is prohibited to own. Okay. To the best of my knowledge, we are not having a communal chametz burning this year. Unfortunately, God willing, everything should be well next year. We'll get back to it next year. But just with COVID and stuff, the feeling was just a little too complicated. If a person is nervous about burning their chametz, it is okay, as we said last year. And this is true any year, by the way. It's okay to just break your chametz into small pieces and flush it down the toilet. Okay. It's preferred to burn it, but if a person doesn't have the means or is scared or nervous, it's fine. Just break it up into small pieces and flush it down the toilet. Someone asked if I know if there's a communal koshering this year. I'm not aware of a communal koshering this year. Could be, I don't know, but I'm not aware of anyone organizing it. Okay, we have many, many more questions, but actually those are all the questions unique for this year with Erev Pesach being Shabbos. And people are welcome to head out if they want to. No offense will be taken, but that's the unique stuff. Now let's get back to more regular questions. This has become a popular question. What's the story with bottled water? Okay, now it sounds ridiculous at first. So the general rule with bottled water is as long as it doesn't have any flavors, vitamins, or other sensitive or other unique additives, it doesn't have to have a kosher Pesach marking. But this is bizarre. Regular Kirkland water does need to have a kosher Pesach marking. But if it's Kirkland signature and it's unflavored, it doesn't need to have a kosher Pesach marking. Let me repeat that. Regular Kirkland water, if you're going to use it on Pesach, it should be marked as kosher Pesach, OUP. But if it says Kirkland signature and it's unflavored, it doesn't have to be kosher Pesach. Doesn't have to be marked kosher Pesach. Okay. Another very, very popular question. What's the story with bagged salads? So I feel like I'm going to tell you the same thing I say every year. And I'm just reading what the organizations put out, and then we'll all see together. It'll change within 3 days before Pesach, and that'll be fine. But the star case says that any fresh packaged salads need to have kosher for Pesach certification. That's what they say. That's what they've said for many years. And basically every year they come out with an announcement right before that it's okay without kosher Pesach certification. But we shouldn't assume that. And what they're saying is that it needs to be marked as kosher Pesach. I do want to share the CRC said put out this year that as long as you're sure there's no kitnios and there's no additives in the bagged salad, as long as you buy it before Pesach, it should be okay. That's what the CRC said. So if a person is stressed out about it, that's a good thing to know. But again, at least officially as of now, the star case says it has to be marked as kosher for Pesach. But the CRC gives another suggestion. As long as you're sure there's no kitnios and no additives, if you buy it before Pesach, you're okay. Okay, totally different question. Kitnios for a toddler. What's the story with kitnios for a toddler? So assuming someone is Ashkenazi, may they serve kitnios to their young child. The basic story with kitnios for an Ashkenazi is as follows. If it's going to be an extreme hardship for a person not to eat kitnios, we're lenient about it. So for the vast majority of us, we figure it out. I'll do without I'll do without peanuts for a week. But if a child has unique, there's only certain foods they eat, which of course is much more relevant, is formula. Many of the formulas have kitnios in them. So if this is really what the child needs, we're certainly lenient with it. We're certainly lenient with it for formula. Though people who are using formula, you may definitely give your child, you should check out that the formula is kosher Pesach without the kitnios. There are lists, and I included a list in my email to the shul. That packet was a list including other things about formulas that would be okay for Pesach. You should make sure it's on that list, but even if it's on that list, it's probably kitnios, which means when you wash out the bottle, you should wash out the bottle in a separate sink than where you're washing your Pesach things. If you have a toddler, we're not talking about formula now, we're talking about food. If you have a toddler, and this toddler, if they can't eat their, I think there's kosher Pesach bamba that's kitnios, I think so, something like that. You have to make sure it's kosher Pesach. If they're going to go mashuga, you can give them kitnios. But if it's not such a big deal, you shouldn't give them kitnios on Pesach. Okay, that's the story with that. Okay, someone asked about gloves. So the CRC says, the plastic gloves. The CRC says that you need to, it needs to say that it's powder free in order to use the gloves. But I want to be really clear about this. If there's powder on the gloves, that's a food issue. So what that means is if I'm wearing gloves and I'm serving at a meal, if there's powder on the gloves, I don't know if there's powder, I shouldn't be wearing the gloves while I'm serving. I'll be candid with you. If I'm washing dishes, especially if I'm not using super hot water, if I'm washing dishes, I don't see it as such a big deal. I would say it's an issue. I would say it's an issue, especially if you don't even know if there's powder on it or not, whatever. I would say it's a bigger issue if you're handling food with gloves on. If you're not handling food with gloves on and you're just washing the dishes, I wouldn't be too worried about it, to be honest with you. Okay. Okay, someone asked about quinoa. We do say that quinoa is okay, but it does require Pesach certification. In other words, quinoa as an item is not kitnios. That's pretty agreed upon by now, that quinoa is not kitnios. It's okay to eat quinoa, even if you're an Ashkenazi. It's okay to eat quinoa on Pesach. But if you're going to use quinoa, you should see to it that it's Pesach certified to make sure there's not, wheat kernels and things like that inside of it. Okay. Tums. So Tums seems to be more or less the general consensus that Tums is kitnios. So, but besides being kitnios, many, many flavors of Tums are okay. So, Simi, thank you so much for bringing this to my desk the other day. I appreciate it very much. So, just to read off really fast some of the Tums flavors that are okay. But I want to be clear. What this means is that it's not a chametz issue, but it's kitnios. What does it mean to be kitnios? What it means is that if a person's going to be very uncomfortable if they don't have Tums, they can have Tums on Pesach. If a person just likes to have Tums because they like the taste and they're Ashkenazi, they should pass on Tums for Pesach. But if they're going to have very bad heartburn or the like, they could have Tums as long as it's one of these flavors. Regular, EX, Ultra are okay. And there's an extensive list of Tums beyond that. If people want to ask specifically about that, they can contact me later maybe. But that's the basic story in terms of Tums. Okay. Kashering. Obviously, we could talk a long time about kashering, but there were very specific questions posed to me, so I want to address those. One person posed a question about an electric glass cooktop. What's the story with an electric glass cooktop? I will tell you that, as I'm sure many of you know, there are various opinions in the rabbinic kashrus world today. What the story is with kashering such things. Rabbi Eimer Zichron Levracha was very lenient about it. Rabbi Eimer felt you could kasher in the normal way. You would kasher an electric burner, which would be, to whatever you have access to. You would make sure the surface is clean. You would wait 24 hours since the last time it was used, and then you would put it on high until it gets very hot. I would say if you've had it on high for 10 minutes, that should be good. If you see it's red all around, that certainly is good. But I would say if you have it for 10 minutes, that should be fine. But the only thing that Rabbi Eimer felt was he felt that does not kasher the glass areas in between the burners. So if you have an electric glass cooktop, you could kasher the burners in the normal manner, and that would allow you to put Pesach pots on your burners. But what you shouldn't do is you shouldn't slide a hot pot on Pesach off of the burner onto the area in between. And for that, you should use a trivet or something, or just pick it up and move it off to the counter. Okay, someone submitted a question about if a garbage disposal may be used on Chol Hamoed. I would say it's fine to use a garbage disposal on Chol Hamoed. Some of the agencies recommend when you're kashering the sink, when you pour the boiling water, pour some of the boiling water down the drain as well. I would say if you do that, it should be fine to use the garbage disposal. Okay. The next list of questions is sort of general Pesach preparation for the home. I actually don't have that many more questions, so God willing, we'll open it up for your chats and other questions very soon, God willing. Okay, this is a hard one. How much effort should be put into cleaning toys with Play-Doh stuck inside them? That's a hard one. If the Play-Doh is listen, all you grandparents who are smiling, you might think it's funny now. I don't think that question is funny. So the bottom line is that if there's not access, if there's not access to the Play-Doh, or it's at the Play-Doh, as is the minhag of our dear children, that they stick things inside toys and it's so high up you can't even access it. If you couldn't even touch it, it's not an issue. But if it's something that really might come out on Pesach, I would say you should either get rid of the Play-Doh or just set it aside, put it with the stuff that you just take a box of their toys that are too hard to clean and sell them with the chametz and be done with it. I hope I answered the question. The question, if you want to follow up privately, please feel free to. I don't know if that was practical or not. Children's books. So I'll tell you what I say for books in general. You don't have to clean through every book. You could be, thank God we have so many books today. So what we do in my own home is we normally, use books a lot at the table. We don't use books at the table over Pesach, unless it's a book that we, sometimes I'll buy something right before Pesach, and so I didn't expose it to chametz in any way. But other than that, we don't sit there checking through all the books. Every now and then I have a book that I know I read that book a ton at the table, and who knows how many crumbs there are, and there was a study done in my house. If I'm asked a difficult shaila, there's normally a great correlation between the difficulty of the shaila and the number of pretzel crumbs on whatever book happens to be present. But if you know that there are certain books that you eat so much over and things like that, it probably does make sense to shake it out before. So I wouldn't sit there cleaning out my kids' books before Pesach. I really wouldn't. I would tell the kids that the regular books, we're not going to use them by the table. I wouldn't do more than I wouldn't do more than that. Okay, great question. Somebody asked if baby bottles, normally we get new bottles for Pesach. That's normally the practice. So we're going to put it away, and we're not going to use it over Pesach. The chametz stick the baby bottles that are washed with chametz, we'll use over Pesach. Do you have to like put them in the chametz area? Do you have to like sell the baby bottles? You don't have to put them in the chametz area, but you should just put them away to remind yourself not to use it. But if there's no residue of chametz in it in any way, shape, or form, you don't have to sell it, but you should just sort of have it away in a sense, or like tape it shut or something, just a reminder not to use it. If old food containers are clean, I wouldn't worry about it. I would only worry about it. The question was old food containers used with toys. Is that an issue? I wouldn't worry about it. As long as they're clean, as long as you don't think that the oatmeal canister has oatmeal in it. If you think the oatmeal canister has oatmeal in it, you have to get rid of the oatmeal. But presumably, if it's being used with toys, you cleaned it out at some point before it was used with toys. Okay, really good question. A person wants to clean out their private work office. For those not aware, in past times, people would leave their house and go to work, and it was a fascinating, novel idea. So a person who wants to clean out their chametz. So is there a time that should be done? That's a great question. So I'll tell you like this. If you have an office, so by the way, if you, in all seriousness, if you don't even have access to your office, if you don't go into your office regularly, and if you're not going to your office from now in Pesach, I wouldn't even worry about it. I would just put down the chametz in the office for the sale of chametz and be done with it. If you are going into your office regularly, then really the right thing to do is, well, certainly if you plan on being in your office over Chol HaMoed, certainly the right thing to do is the last evening that you're at your office, do a Medica on your office. Now, the standard time for Medica is Thursday night. If the last night time you're going to be in your office is Wednesday night, you should do a Medica. You don't have to sit there with a candle. You could just take a flashlight, just go around, take a few minutes. You don't have to put out chametz ahead of time. Don't make a bracha because you're doing it early. You're doing it before Thursday night. Don't make a bracha and just take a flashlight. Just go around the office, open the drawers, see if you have chametz in there. That would be the most appropriate thing to do. If that's complicated and stressful, you're not going to be in the office anyway over Pesach, you could just put down whatever chametz in the office should be sold, and that's okay. But the ideal thing to do is to do a Medica in your office, and the time to do a Medica is the last evening that you're going to be there. But if you do the Medica before Thursday night, you don't make the bracha and you do say the bittul. Okay. Can a Kiddush cup be kashered? A Kiddush cup can be kashered. In order to kasher a Kiddush cup, you would clean it. You would make sure it's clean. And then you would take a pot of boiling water. The minhag is it's a Pesach pot. Boil up water in the pot, and then drop the cup, completely immerse the cup in the boiling water for just a moment, and wash the cup off with cold water afterwards, and you're done. It should be that the pot hasn't been used for 24 hours, and it should be that the cup hasn't, let's say, been washed, let's say hot, within the past 24 hours. You could kasher more than one cup at a time, but it shouldn't be that the cups are like jammed against each other within the pot. But it only has to be under the hot water for a moment. There's a question, more than one person has asked me this already this year. Can we, what do we have to do if we want to use our regular towels, tablecloths, things like that? What do we have to do to take tablecloths that we normally use during the year and use them for Pesach? So the generally accepted thing is, as long as you wash them, it is said that you should use the hot cycle. Someone specifically asked, can you just use the warm cycle? Normally we say you should use the hot cycle. I would say that for towels and tablecloths. Bibs, my guess is the food that you're giving a baby a kid who's using a bib is probably not yatso lettuce, but maybe if it's very hot that you're giving, you should clean the bib on hot cycle also. But the bottom line is, as long as it's clean, and it would make sense to wash it in the hot cycle in the dishwash in the laundry machine. Okay, almost done, everybody. What's the story in terms of a fellow who's in his first year of marriage wearing a kittel? What's the story with wearing a kittel during your first marriage at the Seder? There's different minhagim for this. There's different minhagim for wearing kittel on Yom Kippur during one's first year of marriage. I think the prevailing, it's interesting, it's a question of what's the kittel supposed to represent. It could be the kittel supposed to represent like a garment of like royalty, in which case that certainly fits for a person in their first year of marriage. It could be the kittel is supposed to be a more mournful thing, actually reminiscent of shrouds, because the night of the Seder lines up with Tisha B'Av. It's an interesting thing. So it sort of depends which way you understand kittel, in which case maybe it's not nice for the first year of marriage. It's such a joyful year. I think the more, there really are minhagim either way. And the minhag is for the wife to tell the husband that he's doing it wrong. That's the most common minhag. But the bottom line is, I think the prevailing minhag is to wear the kittel during the first year. But really, either way you go, there are people who do that. Okay. Somebody asked about garbage with Yom Tov. For us in Kemp Mill, garbage pickup is normally Monday. Monday, we should all be well, is already the third day of a 3-day Yom Tov. So how does that work? Okay, so I'll tell you what I normally say. It's based on conversation with Rabbi years ago. What seems the issue is, we normally say that to take the garbage can outside, it's an issue of muksa to do that on Shabbos or Yom Tov. So the suggested practice is as follows. The suggested practice is to take your garbage cans before Yom Tov, before Shabbos, and position them outside. However many garbage cans you think you'll need by Monday morning. Maybe 2 garbage cans, 3 garbage cans, whatever it is, whatever, and position them outside. Maybe put 1 garbage bag in each of them to kind of weigh them down. And then basically, as Yom Tov and Shabbos and Yom Tov progress, every time you have a garbage bag that needs to go outside, don't pass go. Go take it straight to the garbage can on the curb. Don't put it in the garbage can by your kitchen door. Take it straight to the garbage can on the curb and put it there. You're allowed to take the garbage outside because it's going to make a mess if you leave it inside. But once you put it down outside, you can't easily pick it up again, halachically speaking. So take it straight outside and put it in one of the cans on the curb. And keep on going like that. So the first bag I'll put in can number 1. The second bag I'll put in can number 2. The third bag, and so on and so forth. And then start again. The 4th bag I'll put in can number 1. Question is, what do you do? So God willing, Monday, our hardworking garbage collectors, they'll definitely get a workout come Monday of Pesach. So then they're done. So there's all these garbage cans sitting there. So then Rabbi felt, well, the first garbage bag I have at lunch on Monday, the first bag I have, the same way that I can move the garbage outside, I can pick up the can to have a place to put the garbage. So before I take the garbage outside, go to the curb, take 1 can, put it in the regular place that you put it, and then take your 1 bag and put it there. Then once you have your second bag, if you have a second bag, go back to the curb, take the second can, put it where you normally put it, put the garbage bag in. I will mention that if people have, some people might have a non-Jewish, whether it be a live-in, whether it be someone who's coming to help a little bit over Shabbos Yom Tov, I think it would be fine. Whether it's a neighbor that we're friendly with, I think it would be fine to explicitly just ask them to, if they wouldn't mind, taking it back for you, taking the garbage can back for you. I think that would be okay. Okay, thank you all who submitted questions, and thank you everybody on the Zoom for your great patience. What we're going to do now is I'm going to go through the chats of the questions. I'm going to try to read the question aloud so people know what I'm talking about. Okay, thank you very much. If a person eats only shmura matzah on Pesach, is it still okay to have egg matzah in the house on Pesach? Regardless of your practice of shmura matzah or other types of matzah, it's okay to own egg matzah over Pesach. So the question is, most Ashkenazim don't eat egg matzah over Pesach, but you're allowed to have the egg matzah around. Thank you. Pita bread would be the question is pita bread okay for the Shabbos of Erev Pesach? That's an interesting suggestion. Pita bread would be no different than challah. Pita bread would be okay. But what I do want to mention is in order to make hamotzi, we want the two bread items to be whole. So you just want to make sure it's not one of those sliced pitas. That's an interesting suggestion. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you, Ron. I don't know if that's Ron Scheinson or another Ron, but either way, thank you. What about the Pesach rolls that are baked? I would say that Pesach rolls that are baked should not be eaten on Shabbos of Erev Pesach. Thank you for raising that. That's a wonderful point. Again, I would say that Pesach rolls that are baked should not be eaten on Shabbos of Erev Pesach. Thank you for that. Yeah, thank you for the Kitnios comment. Oh, thank you. Someone asked how much egg matzah needs to be eaten on Shabbos. Thank you for raising that. The truth is, in order to be confident that you ate enough in normal circumstances, I would say, I think they normally say what's preferred. If I'm not mistaken, I think they normally say it's preferred to eat a whole, an entire egg matzah. If that's difficult, sheet. What?
A whole sheet, you mean?
The whole sheet, yeah. Thank you. If it's difficult for a person, please feel free to contact me separately. But I think the normal thing is they say an entire egg matzah would be appropriate to eat for hamotzi. It's a lot. Yeah. Cold matzah meal pancakes. The question is cold matzah meal pancakes. I would steer clear of that on Shabbos of Erev Pesach. The question is distilled water for a CPAP machine. Is one allowed to use distilled water for a CPAP machine on Yom Tov, on Pesach? I would assume there's not additives in distilled water. I don't know if I'm right or wrong about that. Assuming there's not additives, it should be fine. I wouldn't, I mean, you're breathing in the steam, right? That's what's happening with the CPAP. Am I correct about that? Are you breathing in the steam in the CPAPs? We definitely have CPAP users. That's what's happening.
Yes.
I don't think it would be. I don't think you should worry about the water for the CPAP machine.
Distilled water is like cooked water. That's what it is.
Oh,
it's water that has been cooked.
Oh, thank you.
They pulled out all the impurities. It's
yeah, it is.
H2O.
It comes out cool, actually. When you inhale it, it's cool.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Let me just. I'm just curious if it's in the thing. Just give me 1 second if you don't mind. I'm sorry.
It ruins the CPAP machines if you don't use distilled water.
Right. No. I understand. I'm not recommending.
You can only use distilled water on that. Can't use regular water.
Just give me one.
Well, you could also boil your own.
You can
water.
Boil the water, but it's generally we go ahead and get distilled water.
And
get them a gallon at a time.
Hold on a second. I'm so sorry. Okay, here it is. Sorry about that. Hold on 1 second. I wouldn't worry about it. I think it's just distilled water. It's just cooked water. I really think it's fine. And you're not. I think it's fine. I think it's fine. If we want to be really whatever by it before Pesach, I think if you do that, it should be fine. There's nothing placed. It's just sort of all impurities excluded from the water. That's what I understood from people's comments.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
The Star K booklet says any bottled, filtered, spring, or distilled water does not require certification, even if it includes fluoride or minerals.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. Hand sanitizer is fine for Pesach. Thank you for raising that. That's an excellent question. Thank you so much. Hand sanitizer is fine for Pesach. 2 sheets of egg matzah should be fine for lechem mishnah. In other words, one egg matzah is one, the other egg matzah is the other. Hold them together. You're fine for lechem mishnah. Great question. Great question. May Shabbos meals be eaten without hamotzi? Okay, so here's the story. We say that the idea of lechem mishnah, the idea of the 2 loaves, is it reminds us of what God did with the double portion of man before Shabbos. That he set the double portion of man for Shabbos. That is specifically geared, looking at bread as sort of like being like the man substitute, so to say. So we're really supposed to make hamotzi at 2, if not 3 meals of Shabbos. Now, if it's physically detrimental to a person and it will injure their health, then they shouldn't do it. But other than that, if at all possible, a person should make hamotzi on Shabbos. If for whatever reason a person did not make hamotzi, they would not say the full benching. They would say the borei nefashos or ala michya, depending on what they ate. But really, if at all possible, a person should be making hamotzi on Shabbos. Okay, there's a question about vitamin supplements. So the normal rule, if people check out, I included in the packet that I sent out that page from the CRC. The normal rule is generally prescription medications that are swallowed and not liquid or chewable and not flavored should definitely be taken on Pesach without any other clarification needed. You don't have to check the lists and things like that. Normally, vitamins we're wary of. If it's felt to be medically important for a person to be taking a vitamin on Pesach, really important, then it's reasonable to do so. But it should be something that's swallowed and not flavored and not chewable and not liquid. But again, I would say it has to be more than a doctor advised that a person takes vitamins. It has to be a little bit of a greater level of need. If you're asking my opinion, people want to discuss it privately. I'm very happy to. Okay, thank you, Howard, for that. How do we handle recycling bins? Are recycling bins the same story as garbage cans? Presumably you would. Well, here's the story. Long story short, the question of if recycling bins are the same as garbage cans, probably you should put the recycling bin on the curb before Shabbos, and then if you're going to take something to put in recycling, take it straight out to the curb. Be candid with you, I would be a little bit more wary of carrying back the recycling bin on Monday afternoon. I don't want to take the time now to go into the reasoning of it, but so actually I would say recycling bins are like garbage cans in the sense of it makes sense to put it out before, but I'd be more wary of bringing the recycling bin back. If people want more explanation, I have to discuss it offline. Thank you, Yvette. What's the story with selling chametz? I'm sorry we haven't sent something out yet. You can sign up virtually this year for selling chametz. I'm sure we'll be sending it out soon. I'm sorry we haven't sent it out yet. People can sign up online. We'll be able to sign up online for selling chametz. If that's difficult for people, they're welcome to call me directly to make arrangements. Basically, we're going to be doing it virtually again this year, like we did it last year. Hold on one second. I'm just trying to process this question. Do you have to serve roasted chicken or meat on Seder night versus? So the truth is, we normally say in terms of what I eat, we're wary of eating something completely roasted Seder night. We don't want it to be confused with the Korban Pesach, so we're wary of it. Normally, we say there should be some liquid involved in the cooking process. If you're talking about what I put on the Seder plate, I would say if you fried it on the stovetop, that would be okay too. But what we eat something that specifically is not roasted, that there's some liquid involved in the cooking process for whatever meat or chicken we eat. Okay, so Amir Tashem, the shul definitely is making plans to have a garbage dumpster available for chametz drop-off. The shul is definitely making plans to have a garbage dumpster available for chametz drop-off. I'm sure when we have more details, we'll be sharing those. But once, so thank you for the question about that. let me just emphasize, as we do every year, we'll make a dumpster for chametz drop off. Really, 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 especially this year, because it's going to be a lot of garbage this year, right? In other words, our garbage pick was Monday. That's almost a whole week until Yom Tov. So really, from the time our garbage is picked up the Monday before Pesach, please, please, please do the best you can to segregate your garbage. If you've already started going Pesach at some point during the week, please make every effort to keep your chametz stick garbage separate. People could have, when you think about it, people could have bags of garbage that have nothing to do with chametz if they would only have segregated it. A lot of people are going to have a lot of garbage. Thank you. Cookbooks on kitchen shelves that have dried stains on them. So if it's real, if literally translated, you couldn't pick off the food, it's like etched on and you couldn't even get it off, even if you tried, I don't think you have to put that away for Pesach. But if you're concerned that there's, food on it and things like that, actual food, I would recommend putting it away before Pesach. Okay, hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. To the best of my knowledge, and it seems the CRC indicates as such, someone asked about 100% pure maple syrup. I would think it requires a Pesach certification. That's at least what it seems like from the CRC. Oh, thank you. Okay, this is a solid Sephardi question. So normally, Sephardim do not make hamotzi on matzah, but they make hamotzi on egg matzah, Shabbat, Erev Chag. Yes, in other words, because the whole idea is for this situation, it's like the bread substitute. Thank you for that. Okay. If a person adheres to a gluten-free diet, what do you eat on Shabbos? I'm not sure if this is, I assume the question is in general. I assume that's not a chametz Erev Pesach Shabbos question. The questioner, can you just nod or shake your head? Are you you're asking in general what a gluten-free person does for Shabbos? Or are you asking about this year Shabbos Erev Pesach? Sorry. Okay.
For challah, what do we do for challah?
You mean in general?
No, if you're on a gluten-free diet.
Right. So challah, hamotzi can be from wheat, oat, spelt, barley, rye. So I believe some of those options do work for gluten-free, to the best of my knowledge. Thank you. Hold on, I'm trying to get to the bottom of there's more chats. Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't believe there's a communal chametz burning this year, not to my knowledge. So if a person's not able to burn chametz on their own, I would recommend breaking it up into small pieces and flushing down the toilet on Friday. Thank you. Okay, we'll now open the floor to spoken questions. If anybody would like to ask a question, whether it be something we discussed, whether it be something we didn't discuss.
Rabbi?
By the way, if I just want to draw your attention, someone put in about oat challah, it was good for gluten-free. Okay.
Rabbi,
Mrs. Walter, please. Yeah.
If I'm leaving before Thursday and I'm going to do I have to do a regular Medica? I'm coming back to the house. And do I make a bracha?
Thank you, Mrs. Walter.
Night?
Very important question. If a person, Medica's Thursday night, if a person leaves before Thursday night, when do they do the Medica? They do the Medica the last night that they're home. So in your case, it'll be Wednesday night, it sounds like.
Right.
You do not make a bracha when you're doing the Medica early. You do say the bittul afterwards.
Oh, you do? You don't say the previous bracha? The first bracha you don't say?
The bracha but preceding Medica, you do not do if you're doing it earlier than is prescribed. But the bittul, the nullification, the bittul that follows the Medica, you do say that even if you're doing Medica early.
Okay.
Thank
and
you.
Do you have to do a full Medica on the house?
Okay, that's a very good question. If
If you're coming back.
So here's the story. Here's the basic rule of thumb that I tell people. You or your guests may not be in a room in the house that has not had Medica done on it. So if, listen, there are many people who can hurry have a whole house, and there are rooms and this and that they don't need it over Pesach. So what I would recommend in that case is figure out what areas will I actually be in over Pesach. Those areas you should rid of chametz. Now, by the way, of course, there's no problem with taking the upstairs, the high cabinet and sticking chametz in there, but the point is you deal with the chametz, however you deal with the chametz, you make sure there's no chametz around, whatever chametz is you put in designated locations, tape off. I would just tell you to sell to whatever rooms you don't even need to be in over Pesach. Don't even trouble yourself. Put a piece of tape on the door, and that signifies that any chametz in there goes to the non-Jew. But then that means you're not going to use that room over Pesach. But the rooms that you think you'll need, then those rooms you need to rid of chametz and whatever chametz put in designated locations that are taped off. And then those rooms is what you'll do the b'dika on when you do it Wednesday night.
Do you have to, if you're physically unable to go up and down and in and out, you have to do that for a Medica?
That's a great question. I would tell you, you have people coming to you for the last days, or it's just you?
No, just me.
You know what I would tell you? I would tell you areas that you can't easily access. I would tell you don't have to worry about those areas for Medica. Because if you can't easily access it, you're not. The concern is what happens if you come across it on Pesach. If it's hard for you to get there, you're not gonna, you know what I mean? You're not gonna.
I'm not gonna find it anyhow.
Right.
No.
If you told me you had Kanai Nahara, your little mazikin coming to you and this and that, then that would be a different story, But yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Both questions important. Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Yes, please.
Oh, let me just, someone chatted something into me. Is it okay to have egg matzah on your Pesach dishes? Okay, great question. A person has decided they're going to do egg matzah for the hamotzi of Shabbos of Erev Pesach. Fine. They know that they have to be finished with the egg matzah if they're Ashkenazi by whatever the time is, 10:42 Shabbos morning. Fine. So what's the story? Should they use Pesach dishes? Should they not use Pesach dishes? So I would say that as long as you're confident that you've ridded your Pesach dishes of those crumbs, you're okay. In other words, chametz we're more intense about than we are about egg matzah. My guess is that many people won't even want to do that. My guess is that many people won't want to have egg matzah anywhere near the Pesach dishes. But the bottom line is, I mean, look, what's going to happen is you're going to make hamotzi on egg matzah. You're not going to be sitting there gnashing on the egg matzah during the meal. I don't think so. I think you're going to make hamotzi on the egg matzah. You're going to finish your hamotzi, and then you're going to move on with the Pesach meal. So I would tell you, as long as you clean off your crumbs from your plates, I would say it's fine to use Pesach dishes. I hope I answered the question.
Rabbi Rosenbaum?
Yes.
Back to the trash question.
Yes.
You said that you shouldn't, not put your trash into like the regular place where you keep it in the house. You should just take it outside on Yom Tov.
Yeah.
So the requirement for the county is that everything has to be in plastic bags. You can't just like throw a carton of something in the trash.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mean in the bag, in your kitchen bag. That's what I mean.
Right. So I take the trash, I put it in the kitchen bag. Can I leave it on the floor for a little while before I take it out, or I have to just put everything in once and take it out?
You mean on the floor in your kitchen?
Yeah.
It's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
The rationale is that even though technically some of the contents of the garbage might be muksa, it's such an eyesore. The rabbis made an allowance in the laws of muksa that if something is like a nuisance to have around, my guess is that many of us wouldn't do well with random bags of garbage lying around our floor. you know, so therefore, yeah, that would be fine. Yeah, I'm sorry. I hope I didn't express myself in an unclear way. What I
No,
meant,
just was thinking if I had to put everything in a bag and take it right out, then I needed a lot of little bags.
no, you could, I guess all I'm really saying is you could deal with your garbage how you normally would. The only nuance that I'm saying is if you just take it to your regular outside can sitting outside your door, then once it's there, you can't really move it to the curb.
Got it.
That's the issue. I'm sorry I wasn't clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Rabbi, I'd like to ask about somebody who's staying in my house for Pesach. I'm going away, and someone's going to be staying in my basement, and I have a kitchen there that will have chametz in the kitchen, but I'm going to cover it over with a tablecloth. The chametz will be on a bookcase, but I'll cover it over with the tablecloth and tape it so it's not accessible. They're only sleeping at my house. Do I have to cover my sink over there also down in the basement?
Okay, thank you so much, Denise. So first of all, just to be clear, just to make sure we're all on the same page, when you're talking about covering your chametz, what you mean is you're selling that chametz. I just want to make sure everyone understood. I knew you meant that.
Yeah.
You're selling that chametz, but in addition to selling it, you're covering it to remind people not to take from it, which is absolutely correct. Okay, so what your real question is, so if guests are staying in an area, your obligation, someone's obligation, is to check to make sure there's not chametz in the area, unless that chametz is set aside and marked off as included in the sale. Your obligation is not to kosher your kitchen for them, nor is there the kitchen needs to be koshered, the stove, etc., the countertop need to be koshered if they're going to be used. If they're not going to be used, if they're just sleeping there, the obligation is to have the areas that they'll be using be checked. But you don't have to start, pouring hot water and this and that. Did I answer your question?
Yes, that's exactly.
Now, the one thing I would just recommend is I recommend to people that were in that when they're in that situation, they should mark off, let's say tape. I don't mean, 85 pieces of tape, but I mean just like a piece of tape across the oven,
Right.
just as a reminder not to use it, a piece of tape across the microwave, just a reminder not to use it. But other than that, it should be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Rabbi,
Yes.
if I am home, I'm coming home and I'm covering my counters, but I'm not using my sink because I'm not really eating in the house. Can I leave it? I should just mark it with something with tape, like an X, that I shouldn't use it?
Yeah, I would do that. I would just make sure you don't have you don't have your leftover oatmeal sitting in your sink. Just make sure of that, of course.
I assume that it's.
Right, sorry. Just some tape your sink or something, just to remind. Again, the point of the tape is not to make it physically impossible to use. It's just a reminder, just a reminder not to. Yeah, that'll be fine.
One more question, because I got confused before. And the beetle that I'm doing, the Medica that I'm doing on Wednesday night, I do the bracha before. I don't do the bracha before and do
when
the
a person is going away and they're doing a Medica early, they do not make the bracha before the Medica, but they still do say the bittul, the nullification, after the Medica.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, there are some more chats that came in. Hold on. Right. So thank you very much. So to the best of my knowledge, a person could. Sorry, I'm just thinking about this for a second. Give me 1 second. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I might be incorrect about this, but offhand, I would discourage, if you're eating egg matzah, I would discourage dipping it in your soup Friday night, your hot soup. I would discourage that. I might be wrong about that, but I think I'm right. The question is, Friday night, if you're with egg matzah and Pesach dishes, could you like be exposing your egg matzah to hot stuff? I don't think it's a good idea. Offhand, I don't think it's correct. Okay, thank you for raising that. It's a good question. Hold on, I just want to. Yes, that's a good question. So the question is, could one eat the Shabbos meals outside and then kind of throw the challah into the yard for the animals? So it's challenging because you're not supposed to actively be feeding animals on Shabbos unless you're responsible for them. The other thing is, if the animals didn't get around to eating it, it's your problem. You know, so the thing about, if you just have crumbs and just want to kind of throw it to the air, you could do that. But I wouldn't like have half a challah and throw it into the yard. I don't think that's very practical. Thank you for raising that. Okay, this is an important question. Can a person wash on Shabbos? Can a person wash, say hamotzi, eat the challah outside, then return to eat the remainder of the meal inside and bench inside? So no. So the reason why that doesn't work is because the halacha for benching is I need to bench in a place that I ate bread. Now, if I ate some bread in place A and some other bread in place B, I could bench in either place. But if I only ate bread in place A, and then I ate a sumptuous meal of all other kinds of stuff in place B, but I didn't have any bread in place B, I may not bench in place B. So therefore, I think your idea of washing outside and having the rest of the meal inside is good. The only caveat I would add is when it's time to bench, you would go back outside and just bench outside. I hope that made sense. It seems that according to many, the shear for egg matzah is larger than regular matzah in terms of a kazayas. I believe that's so. I would say a normal amount of hamotzi for a regular matzah, just like, I'm not talking about the Seder, I'm talking about just regular meals in normal circumstances. Again, people who have difficulties, please feel free to give me a call. But in normal circumstances, I would say the normal amount for a matzah, just like regular, like Pesach lunch or something, would be like 3/4 of one of those square matzahs, rectangular matzahs. I don't remember what shape it is, but not the round ones. What about if all disposable utensils? So if, yeah, you want to know if it's disposable utensils, you're going to throw it out, and you're having soup Friday night of Erev Pesach, can you put egg matzah in your hot soup Friday night in your disposable utensils? That should be fine. Yeah.
Just a quick clarification. So I understand there might be an issue in terms of really hot stuff, but in terms of, just to backtrack a little bit, with the egg matzah, if we're having the egg matzah at the dining room table with the Pesach dishes, as long as it's basically staying out of the really hot stuff and so on, that the crumbs being on those Pesach dishes, as long as we wipe them away so we don't have any chance of eating them after 10:42, we're okay. Is that correct?
I apologize. I got distracted. I was
Yeah,
reading. I'm very sorry. Repeat, please. I'm sorry.
Okay. Egg matzah, we're eating it if we eat it at the dining room table, we can have Pesach dishes out there. There may be some issues with really hot stuff and so on, but basically it could be there that we're eating and we're getting the crumbs all over our Pesach dishes.
Yeah, just clean the crumbs off afterwards.
Right. As long as we could.
I just wouldn't do it with hot stuff and soup and this and that. I wouldn't do that.
Okay.
Thank you, Menashe. I thank you for asking about toothpaste and mouthwash. I actually, this is like the classic thing about the shoemaker. I didn't print up all the pages that I sent out to you all. so it's some of these products I gave at least partial lists. If it's not on the partial list, feel free to contact me during the week. I just don't have it readily accessible right now. I'm sorry. The last question about low glycemic, I don't know offhand. If you'd like, we could talk between now and Pesach. I just don't know offhand. I'm sorry. Any other comments or questions?
I want a clarification because it seemed like you said that you could put egg matzah in hot soup on Friday night.
I discouraged. What?
I thought you said, and that's why I'm confused, that you could put egg matzah in hot soup Friday night.
I would discourage you from putting
dishes.
egg matzah in hot soup if in your Pesach bowl. I would discourage that.
Not Pesach bowl, any bowl, paper bowl.
It-
I thought you
Yeah,
couldn't put,
that
I
would
thought
be
you couldn't
okay.
put matzah in any hot soup on a Shabbos.
You're talking about Hilchos Shabbos.
Yes.
That's a different discussion. That's a different discussion. That actually fits, I think, with our first session. Different shittas about whether or not you could put matzah or challah, for that matter, in hot soup in your soup on Friday night. Different opinions. Let's save that for Sfiras HaOmer. Let's save that for after Pesach. Different opinions. Different opinions. Okay.
Rabbi?
Yes.
Can I ask the group in general if anybody knows what type of matzah is lowest in glycemics?
Okay, while we're waiting for that response, thank you, Elaine. We're waiting for that response. Does anyone? I just want to tell you, I'm personally offended. I was at the Sunday question and answer. Not one of you asked me to tell you about my background. Not one of you asked me what I would like to bring to the shul. Not one of you. I mean, come on, whatever. Okay, sorry, couldn't pass that up. I'm sorry. I've been sitting on that joke for the last 45 minutes. Any other questions? Okay.
Rabbi
Debbie,
Rosenbaum,
yes.
at the Seder, I realize it's off the topic. If you have somebody who can't stay up and needs to go to bed, how far into the Seder do you have to get before that person goes to bed?
Okay, that's a great question. I'm going to answer you generally. Of course, if you want to discuss it more specifically, we can discuss it privately between now and then. But on a basic level, the core components of the Seder are, by the way, this is just good for people to know, both in terms of people who have difficulty staying up, but also in terms of people with difficulty eating. The most important mitzvah of Seder night in terms of eating, hands down, is the first time we eat the matzah. No doubt about it. The first time we eat the matzah, we fulfill a Torah mitzvah when we eat that matzah. Okay? That's true, men, women. That's all of us. Statement number one. Besides that, a person should do their utmost to do everything else, the 4 cups, and it's even if they have the 4 cups, not waiting until you sing Chad Gadya, you know what I mean, but just kind of like broken up along the, and obviously to whatever extent it's possible for them to eat maror and afikomen and all that stuff. But if there was one thing, bare minimum, and they wouldn't be yotze everything, but like hierarchy, they should say Avodah Mayinu L'Farav B'Mitzrayim, that paragraph. Okay, they should say the 3 things, Pesach, Matzah, Mar, that paragraph, near the end of Magid. And they should say, if it's possible, they should say Hallel, if it's possible. But the most important thing to eat or drink Seder night is the matzah, that first portion of matzah. And of course, everything else, to whatever extent it's possible. But I'm just kind of giving you the priorities. Did I answer your question on some level?
You did, but I'll have to talk to you privately.
We can talk. Yes. Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. Wow. Interesting. Okay. Okay. What's the story with that's so interesting? And Mrs. Bramson, I'm sorry to say I can't see you, but it's wonderful to see your name. But I hope you're well. So the question has to do with brushing teeth. So a person's brushing their teeth on Shabbos of Erev Pesach. You know something? I'll tell you what I would say. That's a great question. person brushes their teeth, they're eating chametz still. Person should brush their teeth with their chametz stick toothbrush. Okay. So I would say when you're finished brushing your teeth with your chametz stick toothbrush, wash off your toothbrush. You know, I mean, there's not gonna, you know, whatever. I wouldn't use that toothbrush over Pesach, but you know, whatever after you wash with the toothbrush, whatever infinitesimal amount of chametz, I wouldn't use the toothbrush, but you know, you're allowed to own that toothbrush over Pesach, and you don't have to throw it out. I would just put it in a place that you remember not to use it over Pesach. Maybe, you know, like the top shelf of your medicine cabinet or something, a place where you're not going to look. I hope that answered your question. That's a great question. Okay.
Rosenbaum,
Yes.
so getting back to that toothbrush, so, but if you're having egg matzah, there is no problem. You can use a paper
That's
tip
correct.
toothbrush.
That's correct. I would,
All right. So it's only if you have the motzi.
yeah. I mean, you know, if you only have the chametz.
The motzi with the chametz, in other words.
Yeah.
All right.
Now it's a pleasure to see you.
Yeah, I realized that. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Igla, thank you for flushing her out, you know.
Right.
Thank you. Before we thank you, Menashe. Okay. Before we close out, I just want to ask a fast question. Thank you, everybody. Again, thank you for the questions. It made the discussion much more fruitful. God willing, we hope to have another session, you know, at some point after Yom Tov. We'll get back to you with a specific date. I had a thought, and I'm curious if people think this is a good idea. You know, there are specific halachos for Yom Tov, but like tonight, we didn't have any time to talk about halachos for Yom Tov. There's too many things about Pesach, you know, and before Sukkot, nobody has time to talk about halachos for Yom Tov. There's too many things about Sukkot. But I just wondered if maybe it made sense for the next session to focus on halachos of Yom Tov. We will have come off of Pesach. People might have had some questions along the way, not about chametz and matzah, but just Yom Tov in general. And it won't be that long until another Yom Tov of Shavuos. So just a quick like nod or shake head. Does that sound like a good idea? That'll be the next topic, laws of Yom Tov. Okay, great. Okay, so God willing, you know, stay posted. We'll come out with dates, God willing. Again, thank you to Miriam for all of her efforts. Any other questions before we close out? Okay, we did record this, God willing, you know, over the next you know, day or two, we should come out with it, God willing, and it should be accessible. And I want to wish everyone a Chag Kosher v'Sameach, and then we should all be well. And it's a pleasure to interact with so many of you. And everyone, just take good care. Okay, have a good night, everybody.
Chag Kosher v'Sameach.
Thank you, Chag Kosher v'Sameach.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi. Stay safe, y'all.